Hi, good morning, everyone. We are just days away from Rosh Hashanah, from celebrating the New Year together. It is a rainy day here in Southern California, and so I hope that you are cozy inside. I have my coffee, and I'm just ready to study a little bit of Torah together. So this week we're studying Nitzavim, and I wanted to give you a quick summary. And this summary, as I've said before, comes from My Jewish Learning. It's a great resource. I always like to say Safari is a great resource. So this comes directly, like I said, from My Jewish Learning. So a quick summary of the Parsha of Nitzavim, and then I'll get into a few of the themes. So here is the direct summary. Moses continues his last speech before the Israelites. Quote, "You are standing before God in order to enter into the covenant of God and take the oath that God makes with you so that God may fulfill God's promise to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not with you alone." We're going to hold on to that. "But with those who are here and those who are not here, that God makes his covenant and oath." And then Moses continues, "You remember how we dwelt in the land of Egypt as slaves and saw the Egyptians worshiping their idols. If any of you turns your heart away now from God to serve those foreign gods, there could be among you a root that will someday ripen as a poison. God will not be willing to forgive those who know of this covenant but follow their own selfish heart. God's anger will rise against those people, and God will blot out their name and set them apart as evil. Future generations will see the devastation in the land, and all the nations will ask, 'Why has God done this to the land?' It shall then be said that the people forsook the covenant of God that God established with them when God brought them out from the land of Egypt. They served other gods who did nothing for them. For this reason did God remove them from the land in great outrage. These are the secret things that belong only to God. The words of this teaching, however, are revealed. This teaching is ours and our children's forever." So, what are the main themes that we can pull out and extrapolate from Nitzavim? A few weeks ago, and you can basically take this from most of Moses's speeches, you certainly hear that idea of idol worship, foreign gods, what will happen to you if you stray. And I'm not going to focus on that today. I did, I think, I don't know, half an hour on the idea of idol worship and foreign gods a few weeks ago. But what I'm going to focus on today for at least a few more minutes is the idea of a brit, the idea of making a promise or a covenant. And you heard the phrasing. It wasn't that it was just a covenant made several thousand years ago. This is a covenant that's made hayom. It's made today. A covenant that withstands all future generations. And so what I want us to do is think about who's responsible, the idea of who is responsible when the covenant is mentioned, but in particular in relationship to the high holy days. So I think sometimes we confuse the purpose of this season. It's September 18th. We are very close to the end of the month of Elul, almost in Tishrei. If you've been following Sinai Temple, you know that every morning or every day in the month of Elul, the clergy give online a little story or teaching, a prompt to help the community journey forward. And what we like to call a cheshbon hanefesh. This is an introspection of the soul. You can go on our Instagram page and on our Facebook page to look at other past days of Elul if you're interested in that. But in kind of delving deeper into the Parsha and thinking about the world's current events, certainly in regards to the Jewish people, and thinking about Elul a little differently. So once again, let me read the opening of Nitzavim. "You stand upright this day, all of you," so think about yourself, all of you, "before the Lord your God, your heads, your tribes, your elders, your officers, all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and your stranger that's in your camp, from the hewer of your wood to the drawer of your water." So you don't often see such a delineation of roles and members of the community in the Torah in this way. And so what this is saying to us is that, in a way, every single person stood at Sinai. Doesn't matter your background or your age or your gender or your position in the tribe or your status. What it means is that the covenant, this relationship with God, applies to each one of us. And in a world in which often we are vying for more attention or more power, I think the Torah is as clear as day. When it comes to taking responsibility in carrying out God's words and being God's hand in this world, each one of us is held accountable. So the Talmud shares a story based on this verse about Rav Yosef, son of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. And Rav Yosef falls ill, he almost dies, and when he recovers, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, I'm just so curious. Did you see anything? What was it that you saw, when you had kind of this near-death experience? And his son answers, in the world to come, I saw a world that is upside down. Those who are on the top here are on the bottom there. And those who are here regarded as lowly are exalted in heaven. So in other words, when we stand before God, God doesn't see our titles or our positions, but God sees into our souls. And God determines whether we stood in this world with a sense of purpose. And I think that's the lessons of both Nitzavim and Rosh Hashanah, that we need to be choosing journeys right now in which we understand that we are no better than anyone else, but rather we claim journeys that enable us to usher in loving kindness in what we are noticing as a very broken world. And so what's the purpose of these final days of Elul? It's a reshaping of our souls that leads us to a path in which we don't see ourselves as separate or elite or the exception to the rule, but rather we see ourselves as part of something greater. And I hope in particular we see ourselves as part of the Jewish people. So that's lesson number one. But I want to expand a little bit more, highlight on that idea of inclusivity, that everyone's included in this covenant. And I want you not only to think about the idea of inclusivity as belonging, which is what we kind of spoke about a little bit, and your sense of responsibility in terms of carrying out the covenant, but I also want you to think about inclusivity as the idea that you are responsible to help others stand. So how do we do that? So like I said, at the beginning of the Parsha, we understand that everyone, at the beginning of the Torah portion, we see that everyone is everyone is standing before God, renewing this covenant, and they understand that they're supposed to adhere to God's laws. But the commentators jump on each of the words in the first few verses, and in particular, they jump on the idea of kulchem, this idea that only when we are together, all of us, can we nitzavim, stand or survive as a people. And so it's a nice thought. United we stand, divided we fall. But the rabbis actually designed pieces of our liturgy and rituals to reflect this verse. Kulchem nitzavim. So for example, we recite together in shul, in synagogue, the Misha Berach prayer, the prayer for healing, the prayer for those who are sick. And when we pray our prayers of peace, it's not just intended for one individual, but you'll hear us say, Al Kol Yisrael, may peace extend upon the entire people of Israel. And the rabbis kind of made a shocking statement, and maybe it's going to sound upsetting at first, but just go with me. They said that a person's prayers are only heard in the synagogue. Now, at first glance, you might think this to mean that God doesn't hear our prayer unless we're sitting in. I don't think it's exactly what the rabbis were trying to convey. I think what the rabbis were trying to convey is that our prayers are not, that our prayers, when we say them in shul, when you say a prayer in shul for yourself, you should also keep in mind those who are sitting around you, those who are not necessarily in the synagogue, meaning that the prayers that are said in synagogue are prayers that are said on behalf of the entire community. And so I want you to think about the idea that when I'm praying the Misha Berach, or when you include me in your prayers, we're including the idea of someone else's welfare. We're also praying for the nation of Israel. We're also praying for the Jewish community. It's this idea of when we pray, it's not wrong to pray for yourself. You should pray for yourself, but you're making an extra step to help others stand up, to help others rise up. When you pray for others, nitzavim, you're giving someone else the confidence to know that they're cared about, that they're not alone. By including each other in our prayers, kulchem, we're saying out loud that we mean something to each other, and that because we do, nitzavim, we'll stand together, God willing, with strength, conviction, and love. And then finally, I just wanted to share, I know we're doing this kind of quickly this morning. These are quick tidbits here in the month of Elul before Tishrei. I think you heard that theme of turning in Nitzavim, and that's not a coincidence. As we know, during this particular time, it's so much about thinking about tshuva, about return, turning to what God intended us to be, turning to the path that God intends us to be upon. Also, the idea of turning towards God and turning away from God. So I wrote this piece, one of my Bissell Torahs. You can also follow the Bissell Torah each week, regarding Nitzavim that I wanted to end with today. So this is what I shared, I think, a couple years ago. I wrote, I was thinking about signs, traffic signs. Here's a confession. Not because I failed my driver's test the first time around, or you can also ask my husband and children that they know that they should be quiet when I pull out of the driveway because I still need to concentrate, which is a good thing. But because as drivers, we're expected to follow signs every single day of our lives in order to live safely. It's those signs that are supposed to help keep us in order and help get us from one destination to the next. So I want you to think about some of those common traffic signs that we perhaps take for granted. The ones that if we did not have those signs would lead to disastrous results. Some of those signs include stop, no turn on red, yield, follow the speed limit. And I was thinking that even when we have signs every day, we know that there are still accidents, that it's incredibly difficult for us to drive well. Very hard for us to drive well in the rain for Californians. It's hard for us to get where we need to go. And so all the more so, I was thinking how hard it is for us to lead our lives off the roads, without the signs, without the posts, without the signals that indicate which direction to go and which direction to avoid. And so we're supposed to see the Torah as a moral compass, a foundation, a guide. But there's nothing in the Torah that says, okay, Rabbi Guzik, take a right here, or move across the country, or stop, don't take that turn, yield to someone else. Life just doesn't work out that way. And so God gives us, if you will, free will to determine our path, to move forward, to go backwards, this season to make amends, to forgive or not forgive. And so turning, like I said, is the root of tshuva, lashuv, but it's not up to the traffic signs that are put before us. We're ultimately the ones who have to find the signs and create direction. So in Parsha Nitzavim, like I said previously, we read, you stand upright on this day, all of you before the Lord your God. And the rabbis interpreted the reference day, the day that you stand upright, is Rosh Hashanah. That all of us will stand together on Rosh Hashanah. That the day the world was born, that we'll be judged by God, by our past actions, and thoughtfully determine this year, which direction should we take? Which road should we travel? But we're not going to be offering Waze or MapQuest. And so sometimes it feels like it's just easier to stay exactly where we are, not to go in any other direction. Because if we change paths, won't that lead to the potential of being lost? A Hasidic rabbi asked a member of his congregation, if you're going east and suddenly you want to travel west, how far do you need to go? And the man gave him many complex answers, but the rabbi answered simply, if you're going east and you just want to go west, all you have to do is turn around. It's as simple as that. But we know it's not that simple. Having traffic signs certainly makes it easier, but traveling the roads of life, switching life paths, going on uncharted territory, uncharted relationships, it's much, much harder. But imagine the places your soul can go if you're just willing to turn. And so I pray that your soul travels far this season and this Rosh Hashanah. For all of you who are watching, I'm so excited to see you this week at Sinai Temple for services. I hope that you'll come to our Erev Rosh Hashanah service, Sounds of the Soul. Doors open at 7. Service starts promptly at 7:30 p.m. That's Monday night, and that's open to all. No tickets are needed, open to the entire community. So I truly hope we'll see you there. And for those who are still trying to find a home, trying to find a place for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we would love to see you here as a member of our community joining us in prayer. And so please, please call the office. I'm hoping that the link will be put somewhere here for more information about membership or learning thank you, learning about ways that you can connect to Sinai so that you can be here for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because we're open all year round, and we would love to see you as part of our Sinai Temple community and family. Nitzavim, I hope that we can choose today to stand together. Shana Tova and early Shabbat Shalom. Bye, everybody.